Was the US Open really worth it for the region? I'm Joe Shaw. Welcome to 27 Speaks Behind the Headlines. This is our podcast where we look back at the week's headlines and do a little bit of a deeper dive into the news. I am a consulting editor at the Express News Group. We publish the Southampton Press, the East Hampton Press, the Sag Harbor Express, the website 27east.com, and Express Magazine. And I'm joined by four of our staff writers, Michael Wright, Jack Motz, Cailin Riley, and Desirée Keegan. And we're going to start with Michael Wright. Morning, Mike.
Morning. How are you? It's a
You
beautiful
out there?
day.
There you are. There you are. There you are. All right. Yeah, we got you outside, which is kind of cool. So you did a bit of a deep dive this week into the impact of the U.S. Open on businesses on the South Fork, particularly. And kind of interesting, you found that there was really a divide among those businesses about whether they thought it was a positive or a negative. What was the divide?
Yeah, well, the divide's really industry, right? It's people who can see a bump in their incomes because of the ebbs and flows of certain crowds, and people who don't, and just are caused inconvenience anytime there's even more people in town at a time when there might not normally be as many. So yeah, people that worked in the restaurant business, delis, hotels, things that tend to cater to people that are sort of on the move, all saw much busier weeks that week during the U.S. Open. A couple of days, some people said their business was double what it would normally be on that same day in a year when there wasn't the Open. So they were very happy. There were also, there's obviously a lot of small businesses that benefited directly from the Open, that were either contracting with them or selling things to them, or that the USGA had specifically hired to do things. And then, there's a lot of people that were not so happy about it because it just meant that they were sitting in traffic maybe a little longer than they normally would be. And since, it's not like they got to trim any more trees or mow any more lawns because of the US Open that week. And so really they just grumble that it's not, that it's, just an inconvenience, and what's the benefit of it? And you said the "is it worth it" thing, and I've heard that a lot lately, and I feel like that sort of kind of imparts this impression that it's a choice that we make, like that we bring the Open here because it's a boon for us. And I don't know that we really have a choice. I don't know if you could all of a sudden just tell the USGA, sorry, you can't have the US Open at Shinnecock Hills anymore. Obviously the members at Shinnecock Hills could say that, but I don't know that Southampton Town or Suffolk County could try to block them from doing it. Obviously that would wind up with lawsuits or something. I don't know, but
It's a major logistical challenge for the town and the county. I mean, because I think it more than in some of the places where they hold the U.S. Open, some of the geographic challenges are unique here.
Yeah, not real. Actually, I was speaking with Eric Steimer, who was the director of this U.S. Open for the USGA, and works on a team of four guys who rotate through every 4 years, planning U.S. Opens. And Shinnecock is not the worst. It's up there, but it's not the most logistically challenging. They're going to be doing the U.S. Open at Marion in 2030. Which is the next one he's working on. And he said that is a literal nightmare because it's just in a residential neighborhood. Those are golf courses that are just in the middle of places where people live and go to work. It'd be like if they put the Shinnecock Hills on, in the middle of the Southampton Village Estate section, and think about what that would do to the logistics instead of it actually being on a highway and kind of out away from the population center. So there is that, but it's not the easiest either for that. For that matter, 10 years, so much will have changed. I mean, so much has changed since 2004. I was reading a lot of our stories that we did in 1986 and 1995, And they were the same kind of stories. And, in 86 and 95, everybody rejoiced at how it didn't really cause any more traffic. But of course, the morning trade parade was just a totally different animal then. Even in 2004, it was a completely
Mhm.
different thing than it is now. And, it's kind of what made it so hard in stories that I was doing to quantify whether the open made the traffic worse or not this time, because like somebody said to me, it's like throwing a bucket of gas on a refinery fire. Was it worse? Okay, maybe, but how do you quantify? I mean, last night when I left Southampton Village at 9 o'clock at night, the traffic was bumper to bumper on County Road 39, and the U.S. Open is not the problem. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's important to note that the Open's coming back in 10 years. It's also gonna bring the US Women's Open back with it, which is problematic. So, thanks for that, Mike. We will talk with you again later. Let me bring in Jack Motz, who is our East Hampton reporter. Hey, Jack.
Hello, Joe.
We have you on pretty much every week, don't we? Because we like to catch up on what's going on in East Hampton.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So this week, interesting thing happened, which is not that unusual for the South Fork, but in the sense this was unusual because of how it unfolded and how the response was. Uh, Talk about what happened.
So yeah, as you said, a whale washing up on the South Fork, a dead humpback. It's not incredibly unusual or anything like that, but the circumstances that under which the whale washed up really made this into kind of into a crazy thing. So basically, Ditch Plains area in Montauk. There's the rocky kind of portion over by Montauk Shores, the trailer park there, and a 42-foot female humpback. That's what it was later determined to be. Washed up there on the rocks. It's probably about 200 feet or so to the dirt parking lot that's over there at Ditch Plains. So that's kind of where they would be able to get it out of there, right? But you can't really do much with the whale on the rocks. So it washes up probably Friday 6:30 or so in the morning is I think when it got spotted for the first time. I go out there, get some photographs, and I'm out there for most of the day. And probably around midday, town officials and AMC's, the Atlantic Marine Conservation Society, they get out there and they start kind of figuring out what to do with this thing. Because again, it's on the rocks. There's not really any easy way to deal with it. So they're there for, much of the afternoon trying to figure it out. And eventually, by late afternoon, early evening, the whale's still sitting there. It's decomposing. One side of it was particularly decomposed. And they come up with this plan that they're going to build a physical bridge out of sand, and then they're going to use like a grapple and pulley system to drag the whale back to the Ditch Plains dirt parking lot, right? A couple 100 feet. And they were going to do that on Saturday morning.
In order to bury it, is that the plan?
No, to get rid of it, they brought
To
it.
get
They ended up bringing it off to. They kind of cut it up and brought it off to the dump.
mm,
What happens to it next is going to be up to the waste hauler. But I would guess it'll probably be a landfill. But yeah, so they get there. They start building this bridge around 9 o'clock or so on Saturday morning. And it's also important to note that they're in a race against the clock, right? So this is a really crazy plan, and I'm really glad I got to see it in action because, they're trying to time this to line up with the tides,
I
right? So
see.
they started at 9 o'clock. They're in a race against the clock because low tide, which is when they needed to get it out there, to get the excavator out there, was set for around noon. So they have about 3 hours to build this several 100-foot bridge. There was a lot of stuff that could have gone wrong here, and the bottom line is none of it did. So they get out there with this, with this land bridge, several 100 feet out onto the rocks, and they probably get out there around 12:30, I'd say, and they're kind of, looking at the whale and such. This is the first time they were able to really efficiently get out there, right? Because they just placed all the sand on top of it. And then they ended up, kind of lifting the whale's tail. Like they got kind of lucky actually because the whale's tail was facing west, which is the direction they needed to go. So
Oh, wow.
they could just kind of hook it up, right? They didn't have to like
Yeah.
figure out how to like spin the whale around to
Whole different situation if it's facing the
yeah,
other way, I guess.
if it's
Yeah.
facing the other way. So they're able to hook up this grapple to the whale, and they kind of lift it up around probably 1:15, I'd say, for the first time. They had a bunch of people out there with the chains and stuff. So they lifted up, and I was standing. I actually got really lucky. I got a good spot. I was standing right on sort of pavilion with the Montauk Shores. I got in there. So I got great photographs and good videos. You can check them on 27 East Instagram.
Hmm.
So I'm up there, and it was the worst smell I've ever smelled in my entire life. The whole thing, like once they lifted it up, it just released all the trapped gases that were under there. And the whole thing just cleared out. Like everyone ran away, including me. So, so they get this tail up in the air, and they're kind of like almost wiggling it around. I guess they were probably testing to see, is this thing going to burst at the slightest
Oh
tug,
my.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they're kind of moving it around to test it, and everything went perfectly. They got the thing, they pulled it out. It took about 15 minutes to get it, whatever it was, probably about 200 feet, I'd say, from point A to point B. And then, by 5 p.m. or so, they were all cleaned up. They had the whole thing done. The lifeguards were out with drones, looking for sharks. None were spotted. And honestly, it was really just the place to be on Saturday in Montauk, which
I
which
will say
sounds
this.
crazy, but
I will say
yeah,
this, you will never have a chance to see that again probably in your
yeah,
lifetime. I mean, that's not
yeah.
something you're gonna typically see is using heavy equipment in that manner in order to get to a whale. I'm guessing sushi's off the menu for you for a little while. You're not
Exactly.
yeah, you're not gonna
Yeah,
be that interested.
yeah.
That
So
that, and as you said, the videos that you got and the photos you got were amazing, and, it's one of those it's not such a rare occurrence for wildlife, and especially, I mean, a 42-foot whale is a pretty rare occurrence to wash up. We get those every once in a while, but, that was something,
yeah, it
and it
was
was
to me the circumstances were the story, right? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know when I'm ever going to see something like that again, and I'm really
It
glad I
was
got
a
to.
great
Yeah,
response. I mean, and as you said, kind of a crazy idea, and,
yeah,
they
yeah.
pulled it off.
It was crazy. Councilman David Lease, he was out there all day on Friday and Saturday coming up with this thing and did an incredible job. I mean, he made it work.
Life on the South Fork, it can be very unusual, and you'll see some things you won't see anywhere else, so, appreciate you being there for that. It happened over the weekend, so you did a little extra duty, and I think it was worth it. The social media, if you go to our Instagram page at 27east.com, and Jack has lots of photos on the story at 27east.com itself. Thanks for that, Jack. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Joe Shaw. I want to bring in our staff writer, Cailin Riley. Hey, Cailin.
Hi there. I need to just start off by saying that uh, I relinquish my title of most challenging and painful news story ever written to Jack now because years ago I was assigned to go to every local gym in the area and take their hardest workout class and then write about it. But when Jack talked about the gases being released from the whale, I said, he's taken my title now.
You got the better end of the deal there
Worst,
on that.
worst, worst in the field reporting experience. So congrats for that, Jack. You
Well, I'll
helped hold
say
that
this,
title.
it's not everybody gets to smell a dead whale, in their lifetime, so Jack kinda got a life experience there. So your story this week is a little less of a challenge in that regard, Cailin, but
Yeah.
you wrote about the Unitarian Universalist Church of the South Fork, which is in Bridgehampton, along the Bridgehampton-Sag Harbor Turnpike.
hmm
Um, they are celebrating a milestone this year.
So the Unitarian Universalist congregation, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit.
I think I
Speaking of
misspoke, you're right, yes.
Yeah, well, speaking of unique experiences, they are a really unique group because when we think about organized religion in our country, we think about Judaism, Catholicism, Islam, there's lots of different groups and organizations. Many of them are sort of defined by a somewhat rigid set of principles and beliefs related to spirituality and religion. And Unitarian Universalism is very unique in that regard. So it was kind of fascinating hearing about both the history behind this belief system and also the way that this particular congregation exists and its history in Sag Harbor and Bridgehampton. And so it was very, very
It's
interesting writing about it.
it's less about the dogma and more about bringing people together and experience and sharing spiritual experiences, right? It's and you can have a whole there are a whole lot of range of belief systems within the Unitarian Universalist congregation, I would guess.
Yes, I mean, I would go as far as to say they are like aggressively anti-dogma. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of the whole major organizing principle of this belief system. And they're also extremely engaged in the local community. And so a lot of
Mhm.
what they do might even be considered by some to be radical or even provocative, but they are radical with love, basically. So it was very interesting, learning about the history of how this congregation formed, that for the first almost 20 years of their existence, they didn't have a formal meeting house. And so they would get together at the Watermill Community Center. And I thought it was kind of very sort of a microcosm of what they're all about. The congregation decided that they wanted to have a meeting house in their own place. And Sue Penny, who's the current head of the board there, was joking that part of the reason they wanted to do that was because at the community center, they had to set up the chairs for every Sunday service and then break it all down again. And they were like, boy, it would be nice if we didn't have to do this every Sunday. Then they end up building their meeting house. And they basically ended up doing the same thing because they opened their doors from the beginning to so many other organizations like Zendo Buddhism, Islamic Center of the Hamptons, to use their building, that in essence they continued to do the same thing. And it's kind of a microcosm of what they're all about. I mean, imagine another, synagogue or Catholic or Presbyterian church, saying to a completely different religion, hey, you guys can come use our building. You just don't ever hear about that, but that's pretty much normal in the Unitarian Universalism belief system, at least at this congregation on the South Fork, which is part of what makes it so unique.
And it's been that way for 40 years. It's a fairly healthy congregation, right? They have a pretty sizable congregation that is very active.
They
Um,
do. They do. And, Reverend, I think you have to give credit to Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson. She's been there for 10 years. She's also fascinating. I love chatting with her. I've interviewed her before. I always end up on the phone with her way longer than I probably need to be, just because she's really engaging and interesting to speak to. But, she also kind of made the point that, yes, the congregation is healthy, but they do want to see it younger. And there's a lot of reporting nationally, I know in the New York Times, really about how younger people have stepped away from organized religion in a
mhm.
major way. And so she's thinking about that a lot because she's in a leadership position with Unitarian Universalism nationwide. And so how do you address this issue? And she made a good point when you talk about when you want your congregation to grow, no matter what your religious denomination is, you have to ask yourself why. Is it just because you want to fill the building? Or do
Mm.
you think you have something to offer people? And they do. They believe that what they have to offer there is life affirming and in many cases life saving. But they're always a place that's ready to think outside of the box. So right now she's thinking maybe Sunday meetings, Sunday services don't work for people anymore. When you think about the economy, the way people work multiple jobs, their families, not everyone's working 9 to 5, 5 day a week jobs anymore. Maybe the way they have to deliver what they have to offer has to change,
Mm.
And so it's really, I think it's very bold and unique of them to be kind of thinking outside of that idea that, oh, well, meeting every Sunday is how we have community.
It's really interesting. It's a triple anniversary because it's 40 years for the church, 20 years at that building, I believe, right?
Mm.
And 10 years for Reverend Johnson. So appreciate your story. That's at 27east.com, and they'll be celebrating that this year with some events. Best of luck to them. Thanks, Cailin. Appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to do it.
So it's time for our silver lining story. And with that, we bring in for the first time on the Behind the Headlines broadcast, Desirée Keegan. Hey, Desiree.
Joe, happy to be here.
Great to have you. So you did a story this week timed with our coverage of all the different graduation ceremonies that took place this week. And by the way, congratulations to the class of 2026. You wrote a story that I thought was really interesting, which is a lot of the young men and women who are at the top of those classes as valedictorian and salutatorian also have this tremendous success in athletics, right? They're real student athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually a little shocked, to be honest with you, looking at all of the East End, top students and seeing that there were so many. 9 times out of 10, it was the valedictorian and salutatorian who were excelling in athletics, but also going on to compete at the collegiate level, which obviously is something that's very difficult to do. So to be able to juggle both, was really impressive.
Yeah, it's surprising to me because in order to be valedictorian or salutatorian of a class, you have to put in so much extra time and effort and study. But in order to be a great athlete, you also have to do that. And I find it amazing. I guess when you have time management skills and you're dedicated, that carries over to both. But boy, I imagine that's got to be rough for these kids.
Yeah, I mean, in speaking with all of them, obviously time is a big part of it, and being able to, allot certain periods to each thing that you have to do. But what's incredible too is that they're able to have a social life on top of this, because I don't know that I would be able to do that. So
You're a teenager trying to juggle all of that. It's pretty remarkable. So tell me about a couple of the specific kids who what have they done and what are they going to be doing now?
yeah, sure. So I guess we'll start with West Hampton Beach. Maya Bugal, she is the salutatorian of the class of 2026. And she was all division and all tournament all 4 years playing lacrosse at the varsity level. This past season, actually, she helped lead the Hurricanes on a 6-0 run to claim the Suffolk County Class B championship title, which was really amazing because they were on the cusp there for a while. It seemed like they may not be able to make it, and she came through with a couple of really big games for them. She scored 3 goals in the title game too, and she is actually going to Dartmouth College to play lacrosse, but she's also studying neuroscience on a pre-med track. So
Wow.
pretty amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. And then in Hampton Bays, Taylor Myers, she was the valedictorian this year, and she was a standout 3-sport athlete, incredibly. Basketball, lacrosse, and volleyball. She earned all county honors in all sports, all league. And she was a member of a myriad of clubs. She was a National Honor Society member, president of the Math and Science Honor Societies and varsity clubs. She was a member of the Leo and the Interact and the Key Club. So to be able to juggle all of that and end up getting a scholarship to play lacrosse at Pace University and want to study nursing there, again, a lot of things that you're juggling at once and being able to excel in everything that you do, really remarkable.
I
Um,
know a lot of kids when they come out of high school and they get to college, it can be a real tough transition for them because they find out it's a lot tougher in college. I have a feeling these kids will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be that way, right? I mean, if they're doing what they're doing at this level, I can't imagine, how they'll handle the next level.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
uh, did you get to talk with some of these kids?
yeah, I spoke with all of them actually.
That's great, and I imagine they are just great kids to talk to as well. They've got to be so well-rounded to be able to accomplish all this.
Exactly. And, a lot of the time they, credited their support system, their family, their coaches. Some of them even had, teachers that they leaned on to help them to get through any sort of tough day, whether it was a tough game or a tough test. They really, leaned on other people as well and said that, not just, the studying in the classroom translating to athletics and how they handle those pressures, it kind of worked the opposite for some of them as well, where starting in sports so young and getting all of that different feedback, learning how to, navigate certain things on the field or on the court, how it would help them in the classroom instead, and being able to, you know, budget time or
Mhm.
look at something from a new lens and be able to attack it in a different way than maybe they would have normally.
We love giving the young men and women who accomplish so much in our schools their moment in the sun. So this was a great story, and like I said, really good timing coming right around graduation. So thank you for doing it. And that story is also at 27east.com if you want to go be reassured that the schools are turning out some pretty good kids. Thank you to Michael Wright, Jack Motz, Cailin Riley, and Desiree Keegan. I'm Joe Shaw. We will see you next week with another edition of 27 Speaks Behind the Headlines.